What's up, guys? Welcome back on my YouTube channel. So I'm back again with another video. Let me just come up close. See my flow face. Okay, my lips are dry. So I am back again with another video. So this video I'm gonna make, it's about, do narcissists end up together? Do narcissistic people end up together? And I think like a lot of time that I have mentioned here, I've mentioned that my mother and my father are actually a narcissist. In my head, when I started coming across narcissist, the first thing that I did, I dismissed my mother's mistreatment toward me, because I felt like I'm just gonna be a little bit lenient towards her. And I realized it's just because I was not ready. I was not ready to know the truth, as much as the truth was already in front of me. I was just not ready. I was not ready to accept the truth. Instead, I just wanted to protect myself from the truth. I don't know how, because the truth sometimes it's bitter. So I was trying to protect myself, and in a way, as much as I knew that she's shitty too, but it was easy with labeling my father first before her, because I was kind of like, my father never done anything for me, anything, like anything. So I was like, you know what, at least sometimes we did have food, at least with my mother, at least sometimes we did have clothes, sometimes we did have she pays school fees, even though it was a painful process. We have to do something in order for you to have something, in order for them to give you something, even if they bought you something, whether it's underwears, you have to pay for them. So it was that process with my narcissistic mother. But because I was already in a place where I was not ready to accept it, I was not ready to accept the truth. Do narcissists end up together? Okay, the video is about that. Narcissists do end up together. For what reason? I'm just gonna tell you now. The way I actually realize is that yes, narcissists do end up together, and I'm just gonna explain a little bit of my observation as well as my own personal experience. Obviously, we have this thing of assuming that narcissists end up with empath. No, not all the time they end up with empath. There is this saying that good people end up with good people, and I do believe in that. When a narcissist end up with an empath, that empath was horrible to herself, or whether to himself, but most of the time they end up divorcing. Narcissist and empath, they ended up, if they were married, they end up divorcing. If you were got in relationship with them, you end up breaking up, because eventually you will stop treating yourself the way you're treating yourself. You will stop accepting bare minimum. You will stop accepting abuse, because when you're dating a narcissistic, you're gonna go through a lot of abuse, whether it's emotionally, mentally, spiritual, sexually, as physical. For me, it was all of that except physical. They were not physical abusive, but emotionally, mentally, spiritual, sexually, they were abusive. But as much as that happened, there's also another saying that awful people would end up together. And I was like, is it true? It always popping up, and I've realized, you know what, I need to make a video about, do narcissists end up together? And the answer is a huge yes. For example, I come across a couple that both of them are actually a public figure. The man is actually he's a political member, while his wife is also a public figure. She's a model. She was a model, so she was a well-known model. She was pretty. She had got a gorgeous body. She was well known for being a model. So what happened is they ended up together. Why? Because a political person, they care about reputation. They want everything with them to be perfect. Narcissists are obsessed with perfectionists. When I say they're obsessed with, not that they work hard for anything to be perfect, instead they're always searching for anything perfect. They don't have, they believe in their head, they don't make mistakes, they don't want anything horrible. So whenever you, for me, with my bare face, with my pimples, as well as my spot, I am not enough for a narcissist. You know why? Not that a narcissist it will ever be enough for them. No, it's just that they care so much with how people perceive them. They care so much about how society. They care so much about being the, being a whatsoever, being the best person in the room. Being, they are very competitive. Like, this is one of the things that I admire about them. They are very competitive, even though when they are being competitive, they are not playing fair. There's no fairness with a narcissistic. If they have to pay someone to order for them to win, they would do that. There's no such a thing as fairness. If they have to probably have a company, they have to do something in order to win. Even if include hiring someone who is actually working for a, a, co- um, a, a company that is actually a competition. They have to in order to get information, they will do that. They don't play fair. They just don't play fair. As competitive as a match, they will do anything in order to win whatever. They don't care who they are stepping in order to be where they want to be at. They don't give a fuck about other people. They just do whatever. I remember one of my ex narcissists, that what happened, like, he would do anything to achieve his goal, and he did. He didn't care how much he was hurting me. He didn't care, because he was using me financially. He was also using me for Wi-Fi purpose because his business was online, so I have access to Wi-Fi as a student. So he did a lot. Like, he didn't care who was hurting. He didn't, because at the time he was expecting a baby with someone else. Instead, he ran away, and that was the option that he went to. So I guess the woman mentioned that she's pregnant, and the guy disappeared, and then I happened to be his prey. But already he done some research about me, obviously, in order to be able to act like fake, trying to mirror a connection, like a soul connection, because that what made me, as much as I know something's off about this guy, because he had a lot of things to say that I wanted to hear, because he done research. He knew that I might break up as, look, he asked around about me, probably even pay them, I don't know. So, something like that. He did a lot of research. So why narcissists end up together is because of one thing. They have a goal. They're horrible people, and when they are both horrible, they don't have to fake it. But eventually, in that a narcissistic relationship, there's always going to be the one who end up being submissive in a way, but their submissive is not a complete, a soul submissive. It's more like a submissive with something in their head. They have, there's a motive within them that, okay, I'm just gonna act like I'm being submissive, but eventually they have some certain of motive in order to strike. They're waiting, because in essence, we want you to trust, in order for them to the pain to be massive. They want a massive. They don't like a small pain. They want the pain to be massive in order for you to won't be able to heal from it. So that's what I've noticed. My mother was more submissive, but I noticed that her submissive, it was not a healthy submissive. It was more like she wanted him to trust, to to trust her in order for to be able to strike anytime. But it didn't happen like that, because you know that things are not gonna always work the way you want them to work. So they're both narcissistic. So the reason why narcissists end up together, one, for the sake of their reputation. My mother was a well-known teacher. She was a good teacher, a mathematical as well as a science teacher. She was a well-known scientist, mathematics teacher. She was very academical, gifted, and her being good, they have something that they're good at. So he was a well-known person in that manner, in her profession. And her being, the reason I'm using was because now she's old, she's retired. So and she was pretty, like way pretty, and she had a dolly body. Like, she was known for having a dolly body, and she was a pastor's kid. So she, everything with her. She came up from eventually they assume that uh back then, when you are a pastor's kid, you are viewed different by society. So he was the perfect target for my father. My father, how was he well known? Apparently, my father's side, they're more of like a con artist. So they were able to trigger people, to make people not see who they really are. So what they do, they um he was a partitioner, a fake partitioner. He knew traditional herbs, because he had people that he know. So he used that in order to get money from people, but it worked because as much as he was a con artist, he knew a certain way how to help people through herbs. So he had knowledge about it. So him having knowledge about it, so he used it. So they were a perfect couple, because my father was good looking, apparently they say he was good looking, because a lot of women were trolling, apparently, I don't know. And then he was a well-known mechanic. He used to fix car. That was something that he's well known for. He was good in what he does. And he was like, you hear a lot of people like, oh, the famous mechanic. Both of them, they have something in common, something that they're both society recognize them with. So what does that mean? That it means now they are perfect for each other in terms of how society view them. But are they happy in life? No. Are they happy with how they are? No. Are they happy with in their marriage? No. Why they were together? It's because outside people admire them. They want to be admired. They want to show as people who are actually perfect. They're obsessed with perfectionist. They're obsessed with popularity. They're obsessed with being well known. For them to be well known and to be viewed as perfect, people will have to desire what they have. They're obsessed with things that are, when you actually look and be like, what the fuck? They're obsessed with all of that. They're obsessed with popularity. And they were popular because we're good in what we're doing. As I said, they were good in what we're doing. They were Narcissists. They are very smart people. So when they had a skill, for example, I said my mother was actually academical smart kid. So maths and science was something that she was good at, and she know that she's good at, because she used to brag about it all the time. And while my father wasn't a well-known mechanic, so he used to brag a lot. So all of that, there was something that they were both good at. So obviously people would want to admire them, and they train their kids to serve them, to serve, like to serve, constantly giving to them. They're not Kids are not supposed to have boundaries. When you're raised by narcissistic parent, you're not supposed to have boundaries. That's how they train you. When you're sticking, when you you putting yourself first, they hate the love you have for yourself. They want to train you to be their slave, in a sense. They want to be a slave in whatever. Whenever they say nah, and then you're supposed to nah there. You're not supposed to question whatever. You're not supposed to have opinion. You're not supposed to have anything that come out from you. So the reason why narcissists do that is because, not that they love their kids. Narcissists have kids not because they love kids. They don't give a fuck about kids. They just want something that's gonna make them look good to society. Because when you're a married person, obviously people wanna know about your offspring. People wanna know why you're not having kids. So for them, it was good for their people. And it happened that we were ugly better. We're not that ugly. We were better ugly. So, and the also other one who got features. My older sister, she's pretty like my mom, and she's pretty like the woman that gave it to me, and really is my brother is also like they're good looking. So, and I was like, you know what? Okay. So when they choose to be together, it's not because of love, it's because they lost their supply in a way. When I said they lost supply, narcissists survive with supply. They survive with ego boost. They want to constantly be boosted their ego. They want people who boost their ego. My mother had someone before my father. It happened that guy. It ended up not them being together, and I was like, initially I was kind of like, hey, oh, I wish he was my father, you know. But eventually I'm like, okay, it's a good thing. It's a good thing that it didn't work out. It's a good thing that, you know, you just be like, okay, I'm glad it didn't work out. And yeah, and my father had someone that he was probably that woman saw through him, because eventually the woman went and studied karate and ended up beating my father up because he was physical abusive. So you know what happened? They were both running out of option, and then they end up together because both of them they look good. When I remember asking, why did you end up with my father, she said he was good looking. And like, this is the only thing that's gonna make you bear kids with someone, is because they're good looking. So I'm talking about things like that usually. And also another thing that I actually watch on TV, there was this couple that was actually suffocating their kids. They were abusing their kids. They deny food. They didn't support, provide food. Instead, they make sure that kids don't go to school. They treated, it's like kids were a bird in a cave. They were not in some sort of a container. They were not allowed to have friends. This is something that narcissists do. They make sure that you're not allowed. I didn't have friends when I go, and those kids didn't have friends when they were not allowed to go to school. They were supposed to eat in a certain way. Like for example, there were many of them. We were many too. Narcissists have a tendency of making a lot of babies. They have a tendency of having a lot of babies. I'm not saying all people who choose to have more than 5 babies are narcissistic, but sometimes narcissists choose to have a lot of babies for whatever reason, which is not a healthy reason. So, and I think they were having 10 kids. This couple was shown on TV, and those kids were suffering. They didn't get food. They didn't go to school. They were having some sort, like, were treated like a robot. They had to calm down, and when they come down to eat, they had to follow certain rules. Like they were like robots. Because I remember one of the kids was actually having they're supposed to wait for whatever mother or father to say it's time to eat, and then you want to eat. Like, you know, when people training dogs for whatever reason, and then they're training dog probably to kill people, to do whatsoever. They were trained like that. And it reminded me of a movie, Colombiana, if I'm not mistaken, whereby Zoe Saldana was a starring role, where she was training that dog to eat and then sit. There was those words that were actually used, and it was so traumatizing. Even if I was watching it, it was so traumatizing. I was like, oh hell no. And when even those kids, they didn't know they were being abused, because eventually when you are being in the hands of a narcissist in a young age, it's take a lot of time, it's take a lot of courage to stand up for yourself, because you are being programmed in a very young age where your brain is still fragile. So they putting a lot of things in your head in order for you to be obedient kid, to be obey, to do whatever that they want you to do. So it takes a lot of courage for you to break free from whatever, to speak your truth. Because you know what, for example, R. Kelly is a well-known sociopath narcissist. He got raped in a very young age, and it's something that didn't happen once, it happened more than once. In his head, he didn't see it as a trauma. Instead, he hid it because it made me feel, it made him feel like he's useless or weak or something. So he didn't want to to be vulnerable, because narcissists, one of the things that they hate the most is being vulnerable. They don't like being vulnerable. It's something that they consider it as a weakness. It's something that they're scared of. It's truth, weakness, being vulnerable. It's something that they don't do. So, he didn't. He didn't. I mean, Al Carey didn't open up about what happened to him until his brother did. And Alkel didn't see anything wrong with his way of how he's coming about, because it's something that he experienced in a young age when he was still fragile, and how he responded is how he chose to, because both of them, they got raped by a family member, and someone reacted differently than the other one. So many nurses did have a choice to be a better person, but they choose this other way. So yeah, so I'm talking about that. Narcissists, they do end up together, but not for a good reason. They don't end up together. They end up together for reputation. They ended up together to look good for other people, society to be viewed as a great couple, a well-known couple, a lifetime couple, which is not even like that. They don't even love each other. They hate each other. The conservation that they have, the constantly hate and they constantly fight. When you are raised, there will never be a peace when narcissists they actually exist, whether they choose to get married together or a narcissist end up married to being married to a kind person. There will never be peace whenever narcissists, because they live out of, like, they can't live without drama. They have to create it if it's possible. So yes, narcissists only marry each other for not good reason. They do end up together most of the time because they're out of their supply. People they use, they finally see them for who they are, and obviously they're gonna stay. They're gonna choose to do that. It's not always a right decision, a right reason for them to end up together. It's for whatever, because narcissists care about things that you consider as important, not important, and they get married together because of money, or supply, emotionally, mentally, or equal boost supply, whatever that it might be. They do end up together. The question is, do narcissists end up together? The answer is yes. I tried to explain, but I didn't have a point. But most of the time, they'll end up together for whatever reason, and those kids will be hunted until one of the kids choose to speak up, or maybe someone or a family member started to see how weird the kids are behaving, because narcissists make sure, for us, we move from the city, they move from a city that they were born into, a province they were born into. They isolated us to cousin, to no cousins or extended family. We were not connected with them because they wanted to do whatever in isolation, because isolation is the first phase that they do in order to put you through some shit. So yeah, they do end up together. Isolation, they do whatever phase that they do in order to make this whatever manipulation, abuse to happen. Isolation is part of it. It's the first step they do. They move far away from that city, and as well as a province that we came to a province that nobody know us. So in order to do whatever they were doing. Apparently, it was my father's plan to abuse my mother, and then it happened to be the kids to be part of it. Because I remember three of my brothers mentioned how awful my parents were. They were just awful people, like physically awful. He's still awful, like But when you're telling me their story, I feel like as much as I experienced a lot of pain, I feel like their pain was extreme compared to mine in terms of how their punishment were like. They were extremely painful punishment that they went through. Like, yo, it made me sad, and I also had my own share of punishment, just that they were different than. But they make sure that it's horrible. So thank you guys for liking, for sharing, for watching my YouTube videos. Thank you.